Happy Valentine's Day. And, well, happy Ash Wednesday. All of the streams on this Wednesday are colliding. And I hope we could do like the layered conversation that we need to, because this week, 2 days ago, I was celebrating my birthday, which, if you look up on my Wikipedia entry, is now correctly marked as my birth year. So yay, right? Wikipedia, thank you for finally noticing that I'm 59. We're also, of course, in the liturgical calendar. It's Ash Wednesday, and we are, entering into this penitential season to meditate on the ashes from which we came and to which we shall return, which also includes the celestial. And of course, tonight I had my birthday dinner this evening with my husband, right? So we combined both birthday and Valentine's Day, which was my fate throughout my childhood, which is, the cake was always a heart. So we are here, the ladies of the Dragon Common Room, and Casey tonight, to help everyone continue in this discussion of, well, what is a woman? Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. So are you a woman, Casey? I think we need to establish our credentials right out off the bat here.
I seem to pass for one pretty easily, so we'll go with yes. Yeah.
Oh wait, no. Okay. So look, we are going to unpack all of the secrets of what it means to be women. So we might enable other people to pretend to be women. Do you think other people could pretend to be women? Can the men? Just ordinary men, right? They may want to know whether I'm worried, right? See, if we're speaking as women, do you think the men will even understand us?
I think they'll understand about half of it. That's not an insult. We seem to have our own language when it comes to discussing things like this, like how women think and how they act and interact.
Which half do you think they'll get?
The simpler, the better.
Well, okay. So, hi everybody on UATV, and hi everybody if you're watching this live on Telegram, and if you're not, you're on YouTube. Hi everyone. The ongoing conversation over there on Social Galactic, and we're a little discouraged that it's going to be so difficult, but we're here. We're here to help you, and we have a long list of topics that I think we're going to have to work through. Shall I give them the coming attractions? We can't. We're women. We're not actually going to promise that this is the actual chapters of this story that we're going to work you all through, but we got some ideas, right? And this being also that there is some discussion in the socio-sexual hierarchy conversation that we can't do it, which to me just means, hold my wine. That it's impossible to describe forget hierarchy, fine. We'll go with another term, structure, web, network system, social status, that women, well, whatever, right? We do think we can describe a structure, and we hope that it is modeled in a way that makes, I don't know, engineering sense, but maybe
Yeah.
symbolic.
Yes, it is the
Yeah, it's a
modeling.
modeling. Okay, so we're going to be a modeling.
Yeah.
We're confident that we can do this, but we do also recognize that it may take some time, and particularly for those of you who aren't women, and therefore we're speaking like this foreign referential symbolic whoosh straight over your heads kind of thing. We'll go slow.
I think that's just it. I think we seem to make it so complicated, and I think the men hearing this, when I say they'll only understand about half, and the simpler the better, is that they must be thinking, and I sympathize. There's no way it can be that complicated. They're making this up, you know,
Maybe,
because it is complicated.
maybe.
That's what I think's going on.
Well, so we've tried several times to say we understand their structure, and they don't seem to be telling us that we're getting it wrong. So I suppose we carry on. The some of the topics tonight, we're talking about queens, which is a very specific thing that we set up last week to a certain extent with the great battle between Magritte and the Elf Queen. And so we know one of the phenomenon associated with queens is that wasp queens, like the Elf Queen, can send swarms of their followers into social situations and kill all the other participants.
Mm-hmm.
And good queens like Magritte, who's queen mother and well, she's to be wife, right? Battled the wasp queens for protection of their hives.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to me to be a fairly simple metaphor.
Yeah, I'm vacillating because I understand it immediately, because as you're describing it, I'm remembering social situations with a swarm of mean girls being sent out through a room and work in the room. They really do. And I don't think men see this. So when you describe it, and what's funny is that, of course, it was a man that wrote that, right?
Right, Terry Pratchett, yeah.
Yeah. I would have sworn a woman wrote that because he understood it so well. That it is. It's like a wasp swarm or a bee swarm, right? Where it's like danger. Just back out of the room slowly. Right.
Okay, so that is a hopeful thought. Terry
This.
Pratchett as a man, may he rest in peace. So yes, okay, so it's possible, and if he can do it, we can do it. I hope, maybe. Well, I mean, yes, I think he wrote it in a way that we recognize it as women. So perhaps if we follow his model, we can make it understandable. All right. That's one layer. But then there's concern that we are trying to map the women's structuring directly onto the men, so that top is the alpha and the middle is the bravo and I mean, okay, fine, we're going to use different terms so that we can clarify that we are talking about a different structure than the one that the men are working on, and we will endeavor over who knows how long this is going to take, right? Terry Pratchett wrote a lot of novels and put the witches in some of them, and then started writing a subset of younger novels, right, with Tiffany in the Aisha Wear Midnight series and such. So this may take a while, right? But queens tonight, we'll talk about queens. I know that another thing that we need to break down eventually is, okay, it's not just queens at the top, right? There's also a tripartite structure of different kinds of women's characters, which have to do with their role in the reproductive place they are, and maiden, mother, and crone, guys, right? So there's the stereotypical coven of virgin, mother, and she who is too old to do either, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm 59. I get to play that role. It's taken, ladies. I'm Granny Weatherwax. Right? Crone.
I'm only 3 years behind Rachel. She's really taken one for the team here.
Crone. Casey can be nanny. She's the mom. It's that we recognize that there's a theme of girl boss versus princess, right? And that these are two different.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Okay. So this is like queen is not the only category we're going to work on, guys. It's going to be maiden, mother, and crone. We'll deal with that one and that interaction. Girl boss and princess. Um, in the long run, we're going to have to deal with the BFF, best friend forever, which usually isn't.
Yeah.
It's usually about 4 years or
Yeah.
longer, right? If you can get past that like crisis at 4, you can surf on into great.
Or it's like a sign, right?
Or
It
it
just
comes back and
goes
forth.
and waits. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
We'll give you hope from our own pain, right? Um, the whole phenomenon of intercession, right? And this is I've been my head has been exploding for the last 3 weeks since we started on this topic. Over I don't know, I've lost track of how we divided it out, but one of the things that I've really finally fully appreciated is why we pray to Our Lady for intercession, and what that looks like in this feminine dynamic, and therefore why it like the meta level out of from this is we're going to explain the church. So yeah, you know, we're going to get there, and therefore the church, something I've long struggled with in my own meditations is why the church or other like abstraction entities are feminized, right? Marina Warner, who also wrote the book
True.
about Alone of All Her Sex and why the Virgin is a bad model for women, also wrote a book on how monuments and maidens, right? Why are all these allegorical figures all over, you know, European cities as women, right? The church and liberty and Britannia and such. What is it that's feminine about that kind of high level system?
Ooh, excellent question. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Why is there always a wooden lady at the front of ships?
See, we got to go metaphor
Right?
here, right? We're gonna go out there,
Yeah.
which gets us to at another level too, the dangers for women, right? And I think there's dangers for women in the internet context of I mean, we've seen it in things like OnlyFans, and we feel it in things like chat rooms and stuff like that. But there's kinds of like what sorts of things are women reacting to when we're getting protective and nuts. We can go there too, and the sort of biggest claim that I want us to be able to develop. And again, it may take us months. Casey and I are here for it. If you will forgive me, we're old. And what is it? As in Arlo Guthrie's song, it's like, I'm not proud or tired. What we're in here, right? The what it is that women create as part of the interactions that we have with men, and why men have the what they see of us and what we are to them. And therefore I finally figured out why they don't actually want a female sociosexual hierarchy to be predictable. And because I'm not going to be predictable, I'm not going to tell you. I figured that out.
That's such a woman thing to say, it really is.
But I know it now, and if you stick around, we're going to solve it. Okay, so to break it back down, we're going to do like the queens, right? So did all that make sense as a prospect of possibilities that we're going to move towards?
Yeah, I think we're sometimes ourselves and others who have been discussing this would try to make a correlation between a woman's role in her female dynamic group, like princess, queen, mean queen, evil queen. We tried to match that with the male social sexual hierarchy. We know it can't be done. We're just trying to find a way to describe it to you, what it would be like, what it would be similar to. It's not the same thing at all, but we're trying to get as close as we can. So I think what we discussed last week and what we're discussing this week is just trying to break away from that and give you some more solid definitions, I think, on the female side that are independent of the FSSH.
Right.
Which is fair.
Right.
Yeah.
And we understand the long-term problem is describe the structure that women create socially, and also show the way in which it interacts with the men's experience. And those are two separable things, right? And yeah.
I think they are separable. I think they're complementary. Like women and men and women are supposed to be complementary.
Right.
So when they're working correctly, they complement each other very well. And when they're either one of them aren't working correctly, but more specifically when the female is not working correctly, then it can really just screw everybody up from both men and women.
That means we actually have to go to couples. Oh my gosh, that might be this summer, right? And
Yeah, could be.
what I realize is this is actually, for those of you who are following our poetry writing, this is to the purpose of the story that we're writing, which
Absolutely.
is the love story. I mean, today's Valentine's Day, and I posted on Telegram. It's like creation is God's Valentine to His bride. We
Yes.
want to
Beautiful.
show what that means, and it's the love story of God for His bride. Who's the bride? The love story in Draco Alchemicus, the bride in love in Draco Alchemicus is trying to ultimately show the way we heal the relationship between the sexes. Those of you who have Volume 1 now, Act 1, will know that the oh look, I have reference.
Mhm.
Right, that those of you who've seen it will know that this is one of the features in it,
Oh, yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
we have actually been thinking very hard about how and the thing is, they start out talking about Valentine's Day, right? They start out like this. How do you get
Let me.
from, you know, Valentine's Day romantic dinner to she slices his face open with a glass?
Yeah.
Right. So we're committed to this problem because
Yes. Yes, we
because
are.
we
We've been thinking a lot about it.
right. And it well, it's complicated. Okay. So we have been happy that in our poking things. And sorry, wait, what exactly do you guys not understand? Okay, that's what we need to explain. That there's been some
Mhm.
responses out there, and that I found there one structural observation, which I think is pertinent to what we're trying to show today, and also one sort of methodologic method of thinking way that is helpful. One, this lovely post that Vox shared on his Sigma Game Substack about female solipsism as a kind of social mechanism that you can see operating
Right.
in this system of wheels. The author suggested, right, that there
Oh, yeah, that was excellent.
the hub is the core towards which that particular group is looking, and the solipsism that from the outside looks like everyone just pointlessly talking about herself is to signal belonging in that wheel, right? The
Hmm.
Yeah, and that these wheels and hubs can be centered on different things, right? That they're you're maybe a church hub or a knitting hub or a the park group of the people who you see with your kids or your dogs, or that there are different ways in which the wheels create senses of belonging, but that the solipsism that women use in conversation to say, oh yes, I've heard that, and tells a story about herself is in fact a kind of ping to say, I know where you are, right? And it's like a locator, kind of a radar.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The other thing, this one we haven't talked about yet, is something I saw in Social Galactic. Guys, I did this womanly thing last time, like read everybody's nicknames out, and apparently not everybody's like comfortable being named, so you don't get named anymore. No more references. I'm just taking it. And if you want me to credit you, you better like tag yourself and say, please mention me by name. Otherwise, I'm just attributing it to anonymous. Um, a very nice observation that in storytelling, men tend to use roles to talk about characters, and women tend to focus on the names.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, names are more personal. They're always looking for women are always looking for relationships, so they're always trying to remember a name.
I mean, I have it from Tolkien. It's like the Ents have really long names, and names carry stories and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, so obviously Tolkien man, but that this it pinged for me this sense of, yes, when we talk, we want to know her name related to her, related to her. I mean, when Vox talks about it, it's like, the I don't care what Susie said to Debbie about Jennifer,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But it's the person, the actual name relations are these. You start weaving again, right? Whereas
Yes.
the men tend to think in functions. This comment on Social Galactic was suggesting, and so I was like, okay, that's a wheels and hubs and names and versus roles. These are like some fairly simple breakdowns to get started with.
Hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking, in Europe, when you meet people, men or women, they immediately want to know who your family is,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of interesting. That's not something I experience here, but it's the closest thing I can think of to what's your name, right? As opposed to what do you do when you're at a party? I mean, men will ask what your name is too, but a woman will try to really hard to remember it and try to figure out who knows who at the party and try to find things that they have in common to talk about to create conversation, to create an atmosphere of comfort, right? But I think, I don't know, maybe it's different. Maybe the who's your family. They're trying to place you kind of by your kin, I think, there more so than here.
In Europe.
But in
Yeah.
Europe, yeah.
Well, one of the things obviously that happened in the United States is people left their kin in Europe and came here. And so there's a whole like rupture in our culture
Possibly, yeah.
between the
Possibly.
old world, or like the people left in the old world who the people in the new world can't meet because they're not there.
Oh.
Um,
So the women in the America are the only ones keeping this going. That's related to home. Think
mm,
about it. That's related to home, right? Keeping everybody comfortable, knowing who you are, knowing who your people are, right? So who are your people in this company? If you're at a company party, who are these people? Who are your people here in this neighborhood? Who are your friends? And
right.
yeah, hmm,
Well, this is again, it's pertinent to what we're trying to get to about queens, and I'm
it
thinking.
is.
So I'm thinking of all of my like, what is a woman? I will premise to you that we are going to describe the characteristics of things women do nearly by default, and you won't necessarily recognize them and unless you realize that we're doing it all along. But myself, my very personal solipsistic self, I realize the thing I've tended always to do is make genealogies, which is what you're just saying, right? When I had my
Right.
toys when I was 8 or 9, right, I made them a genealogy, the toys.
Oh, so cute. Aw, little professor.
Well, I mean, there was the teddy bear king, and there was the Raggedy Ann queen, and then and all of them they had a whole genealogy. I barely played with them, right? I
That's
just put
cool.
them in genealogies, right? And then we had my mom, and you're saying that the women do it. My mother, it was like she had gazillion cousins and could name all of them. And at one point, we had a family reunion where her family came, and there were all these cousins and everything, and you know I'm a little socially awkward. I know it's hard to imagine. And so my default was get a giant piece of paper and start like graphing the entire family
Just for a little bit
tree.
of fun, huh?
Yeah, I mean it was a nice big table, and then I got people to fill in theirs. I wonder what happened to that piece of paper, but that desire to trace and track like everybody's
Yes.
relationship.
Keep, keeping track, right? Just like you do with the kids,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like we talked about last week. Yeah,
Okay, so
that's
these are
fun.
hints, and we're going to try to get them a bit more structured.
Hmm.
Okay, so, but I've also collected a list of the things that the men, or well, it's mainly men, and therefore we're saying we're going to let you inside of why these things these are features, are not just like irritants. But we want to mark that we were paying attention to the things that bug you, and we want to hope to think
Yeah.
about it. What the female solipsism is we've covered a number of times, but to say, and I recognize it in women too, and I do find it irritating because there's more and less skilled ways of doing this, as with
Hmm.
everything. But the primary problem is to create, by way of your story, some relationship to the person you're talking to. So you
Yes.
default to, well, I did such and such too. And it's a gentle way of saying, here, I'm going to give you some information about myself to help you find something to stick to. Right?
Yes, right. Here's something we have in common. That's what you're looking for when you do that. It's not necessarily bragging.
Right.
And as you said, it depends on how you do it, and tone is important in how you do it, and timing. But yeah, there are these unspoken social cues when you're doing it that make the difference between self-centeredness and openness.
Right. And the opposite of female self is female nosiness, I think. Right? It's like I'm gonna ask you a gazillion questions about yourself, which is the same
Yes.
kind of desire, which is figure out, know enough about you to find some connection, so that, I mean, in the long run, what you want to do is have found something you can bond over.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Passive aggression.
Never experienced that from anyone ever.
Where we nothing that was ever said straight out loud, just with hints and stuff. Yeah. I mean, that manipulativeness and shaming, so that, you should have better manners than whatever it is you're doing, and I should just be able to hint at it, because how dare you not know how to behave. Okay, we're not dealing with that right now, and I just pointed out that we've recognized it. That we are emotional and given to drama and to taking things personally. Okay, we'll work on that. We'll get to that, right? we mentioned these other topics we're going to get to. That we avoid conflict but play things in the background, while men keep everything out in the open and use physical contact. I don't believe that. I think guys do stuff behind the scenes too, to each other.
And we always say that, but I mean, how would we know?
We wouldn't.
Yeah. Whereas, I'll say, oh yeah, women totally do that. Most of them are conflict avoidant, because then again, that's it's women's reputation for being sneaky. We're not being sneaky. We're constantly trying to preserve people's feelings, and
unless we're not,
and keep the but you want everybody to think you are, right? I mean, I'm not talking to you personally, but people who do things like this.
I'm taking that completely personal.
Know them because you're a woman, right? Can't help it. No, but the people that do it in your face, and just immediately start, doing socially destructive things in non-sneaky ways or overtly. They're going to lose their social opportunities in the future. So they try not to do that, because social opportunity is paramount to women, and they will do what they can to preserve it for themselves and their closest allies and friends.
Okay, so we've already established that there's probably way more going on in all of these interactions than is said out loud, but they're all creating. How do we keep track of it all? I think we need some help here. What is a woman? I've got slides. That's what the first one says. What is a woman? I see. I've even one. I've got. We need to be organized here so that you don't get lost again, right? Okay. And so tonight's topic is queens. Here we go. Right, we're queens. All right. And recognizing that we talked last week about the problematic ones, and that everyone starts with Heathers and Mean Girls as the example of, the way women behave, right? It's this, but the thing is, we do know from Cher in Clueless that there is a positive version of the same things, right? And and that is, I think when we back up from this, because we got tangled up in our first episode of the good and the bad, right? It's like, well, and even Fat, who was, hi Fat, he's in the audience, I'm pretty sure, or he was. He better come back and make notes for us again. That trying to if we get the valuation of the good or bad on the behavior and we haven't just neutrally described the structure of the behavior, people are still going to get confused, right? So we need to move from either, you know, the good or the bad to just the thing, like the practice or the activity, right? So that's where we're trying to go tonight. And these are some of the slides from last week that I'm like warming you back up to where we got to. Last week we talked about the Terry Pratchett story and the witches, and that he's trying to show something about these kinds of interactions, but because his stories are actually also, I mean, they're fairy tales, the witches are actually usually interacting with other stories, like in the Lords and Ladies, they're interacting with Midsummer Night's Dream. In the first, is it Weird Sisters? Yeah, in Weird Sisters, they're interacting with the Scottish play and such. So they're usually, the witches are always moral in their behaviors, and therefore they're not instantly helpful to us here, because of the sort of bee swarm is potential. So we need to get past the challenge of the queens, which we were talking about, to simply what Veronica's doing with that book. Right? This is this fits with what we were just saying about, you know, making the genealogies and such. The primary thing that women do, I will even put it to you, you're not a woman if you don't do this, is make lists. Right? I mean, there's even a go-go song to that effect. I'm a girl of 100 lists. From who am I? What should I wear? Who have I kissed? I can't sing it.
Oh.
Don't you make lists? You've been making lists. You're the shipping department for Draco Alchemicus, for goodness sake. You know? You're a genius at lists. That's what you're doing nothing but making lists. See, you don't even. Yeah, you do it so naturally. You don't even consider it a talent.
Probably not. Yeah, to-do lists, shopping lists. Yes. Okay.
So no, it's my mother has this thing. My sister would be. It's like maybe it's just my family, right? My sister would always make lists and she'd abandon them, and my mother would find them around, and she'd always say about my sister, "Oh, your sister, she always makes lists." And I'm like, "Mom, haven't you seen mine? I just don't lose them."
Yeah, my mother made lists as well, and she was always telling me to make lists.
See, she knew she was trying to educate you properly to be a real woman.
Maybe she was. I just didn't even think about it. I'm like, lists? What do you mean by lists? It's just not something you consciously do because you do it all the time, even if it's just in your head.
What are you making lists about? Right.
Well, things I need to do for the day, things that have to get done, errands that have to be done, people I have to call back. That's on my list. I got that on my list in my head right now. I have to call somebody back, right? It's quite psychotic, but yeah. If you had to think about it, you'd be like, why do you women do that? But we just do, I guess. And until you just asked me, I never even thought about it.
See, this is my point. I set you up to have that in your head. You had even mentioned it as something that women do, and you can't see it.
I can't.
It's so deeply embedded. So when I started understanding about that, I will give you examples of lists that women make, right? The first was my doing it purposely unconscious, because I was trying to get to this last week. We never got there. I was making that list of the social galactic acknowledgements because that was what I started doing. For example, a woman, I'm going to say a true woman does this. And ladies, I'm certain if you're listening, you've done it, right? You go into a social situation, you start, and Casey, you were just saying this, you start figuring out who's there, right?
Yeah.
That person. I know that person. I mean, canonically, women, like the busybody old ladies, right? They know everybody and everybody's business. So they'd have to know everybody to know everybody's business, to be able to, name all the people in the town and name all the people in the congregation and know who was here last week. And
yeah, it's something we do all the time. I just wanted to say that popped into my head, you're a proper Southern lady. And so a proper Southern lady always gives thank yous when somebody gives you something, right? Or participates. So yes, I think you were doing the proper thing. It was just a slight social faux pas you weren't aware of.
As I
So
was told, for goodness sake.
yes, as you
Yeah,
were told. So
again, I mean, the social problem here necessarily, maybe it's women versus men. Men, I guess they don't go around acknowledging each other. I don't know, right? How would I know? I'm not there. Uh,
I don't think they
yeah,
do.
really?
I really
It's
don't.
just us
No,
women?
I mean this was the list in your head. I have to say thank you. So I mean, this is like keeping a list of whose birthday is it this month,
Right.
right? That's another list. You have to send a card, right? And yeah, you have to say thank you. Or so there are occasions you say yeah formal thank yous. And authors is which you are. You're an author. They do this all the time in acknowledgments.
Oh, although men's are often
So
quite short and women's are very elaborate, right? Or something. I mean, the thing is,
yeah, we don't want anybody to be left out.
that's the other category of list, right?
Yeah.
That who gets
Yes.
included and who gets left off. And then, there's always border
Yeah.
cases where you're like, oh, well, I included them, but I didn't include them. And if I leave them off, and you're like, what? Who cares? Oh, everybody cares, right? And
Yeah. Well, some people care too much if you miss them. That's an even bigger problem.
it's huge. It's like defining.
Hmm.
And I realized, so then I started breaking this, once I attended to it, started breaking it down into, um, in academia, when we do acknowledgments for books, and it matters enormously who you thank in that book, particularly for the women, and you want to make sure, and you go through and all that. I was looking at one of my colleagues' thank yous, and it was like this enormously extensive, and then I thought, of course, that's why she has the, as it were, power that she does.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not just that we make lists. It's a graciousness, right? And this is someone who's not
Yes.
American. She's actually Israeli living in England, right? So there you go, right? But
Hmm.
whenever I see her at conferences, she knows everybody. She's thanked everybody. She's connecting everybody. She said so and who and that.
That is skillful.
Aha.
That is very skillful. And actually when I see women do that, I admire them because it's not a skill I have. It's something I have to work on, especially remembering names. And I'm constantly embarrassed when I forget people's names. But
But you're embarrassed because you
I
know that
do
you're
it.
supposed to do it. You
Yeah,
know you're supposed to
exactly. Yeah.
remember. And
Hmm.
you also know the horror of, so I realized that this list work in other ways, right? In fencing, that it's bad to not get on the medals. And then I started recognizing that, well, the medals was one kind of list, like I wanted to belong in that list, the top 8. But then I realized I could console myself and like all of the other women around me by saying, but we're on the list, right? We're here at the tournament. You may be last, but you're
Yes.
on the list.
Yeah. You made it.
Well, you
It
showed up,
counts.
right? So
Yeah.
there's that category of inclusion, which you realize we can flip it and go to the opposite side, which is in Mean Girls, right? So I'll go back to Veronica, right? You guys wonder why in my Bitmoji I have that monocle. I'm clearly influenced by
You mean that little circle around your
little circle
eye?
around my eye. It's Veronica's monocle. Um, and she's in Veronica. I'm back at Veronica. She's keeping a diary, right? I of course kept diaries, right? And this sort of. I do know that men, like apparently Wilhelm, somebody, German guy, or no, maybe last Habsburg, the Franz Ferdinand, not emperor, but the last Archduke guy, kept an incredibly elaborate list of all the animals he killed. 300,000
Oh,
of them in his
wow.
life. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So I get it that guys keep lists too, but women keep these.
That's a gory
That's like,
list.
yeah. 300,000 animals. I bet they didn't have names though. That we're keeping all of these lists, and then we can use them for good or ill, right? So in Mean
Mhm.
Girls, they have
Good point.
the burn book,
Mhm.
which is then information that they have. But it's like if you're in that book, you're
Yeah.
in effect on that list. and that
Yeah.
that burn book is what is used as the device to disrupt everything in the story.
Oh, I did not like that movie at all. It was so mean.
Because you're using they're I mean, look at what they're wielding is the list.
Yeah. Yeah. Future journalists, all of them, right?
Well, okay, so then I mean, I've thought the other negative version of the list is, and I still I'm still persuaded that my theory, I can't remember that we talked about last time, that Vox says he can't write the female social sexual hierarchy. I think it's social justice warriors always lie. That's just the negative version of it, right?
Oh, yeah, because it's very feminine behavior on the negative side of it,
All of the negative side of it, like the
right? All the
swarms, yeah,
machinations.
the
Yeah.
shaming, but very
Hmm.
much all the list making, right? It's like, and
Oh,
right? Have we
Madame Defarge. Yeah, that's it. She's knitting her hit list. Yep.
all of it, right? And that I was thinking about this a few years ago when first I get the colleagues that name themselves onto lists, like all these petitions. I'm feeling
Hmm.
like that they're not quite as much of a thing as they were 8 years ago, but or 7 or 8 years ago. But it's like you have to sign the if you and you'd feel it, right? I did a blog post about the are you on the list or not on the list? That there were these lists going around academia, to condemn such and such. I mean, right, and
Yeah.
if you didn't put your name on the list, then everybody would see if they read the list that you didn't sign on the list with that group, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, that's a real thing. I actually know somebody that something very similar happened to her. Yeah, your name is missing from here. What's going on? Are you not comfortable here? You just not want to be here anymore? It was so
Right.
threatening. Yeah. So not just, yeah, your name goes on the hit list, or your name is unspoken on an unspoken unwritten hit list because your name wasn't on the list. Yeah, it wasn't on the list it was supposed to be on,
And you need to
right?
sign this list against that person. And if you don't sign the list against
Yeah.
that person, we know you're not with us. And yeah,
Yes.
it exploded, and particularly in 2016, 2017, and then you realize that
Mhm.
that's the toxic version of the positive thing, which is, as we were talking about a minute ago, the remembering everyone's birthday.
Yes. Remembering everybody's name, right? Even if you've only met them once. That is so incredibly
Right.
skillful.
So it's like, go
And
ahead.
remembering to let them know that, just like, you're putting them at ease and you're making them feel good. And that's a really, you're creating a good atmosphere, almost like a home, like a good home,
Right.
right? Wherever you are.
And the women who are enormously skilled about them, well, we call them hostesses, don't we? And
Yes.
particularly when they send out, I mean, these are quinceañeras invitations, right? Party
Mhm.
lists. And that's
Yeah,
like when we
that's
talked
right.
about Barbie, right? It's like she's the one that hosts the party. She's the one that
Yes.
names it's like you come to the inside outside of, have you been invited to the party? Have you invited the I guess the quinceañeras? Have you been invited to the wedding? Look at how much we make lists. Like,
Hmm.
why do weddings turn into the nightmares that they are? Because you have to include everyone on the list.
Yeah. And then other people give you their lists of people to include, and other lists of where they don't want to be sat.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, oh gosh, we really are insane.
Well, no, so this compassionately, I started understanding something. So the stress I've been under the last few weeks thinking about this. I mean, plus also, so next week's episode's not in this series. We're going to talk about the Tucker Putin interview,
Yeah.
haha, right? Because we
Yes.
cannot do this topic like every day because it's too exhausting.
And we can't miss that one because that was really
Well, we'll
good.
do that. We actually like talking about those. Those are way easier than
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So much easier.
It's so much easier
It's
talking about
about
the
men, of
men.
course it is. Exactly.
Being a woman, why would anyone want to be this? It's like, and the thing
I
is, it's like,
I
one,
don't
it's
know.
trained into you by other
Yeah.
women, right? We've talked about my mom does this, it's like you learn it from the other women because it's like just what you need to know, and you do it anyway to your
Hmm.
toys, right? Um, set them around tea parties and then like do seating arrangements, right? Um, so you do it, and you do it as Casey has demonstrated for us nicely, even when you're not realizing you're doing it because it's such a default of organization and system, right?
Yes.
But it's still
Hmm.
exhausting. And I found that the last 2-3 weeks, particularly this last week when we've been thinking about this, I tend to in my prayers have prayers for people. I couldn't remember everybody this week. It was just like it keeping everybody, and it's like an exercise of attention. What like you want to know that your mom's thinking about you, right? Because her worrying about you keeps you alive, don't you know? You're in trouble if she stops thinking about you. You'll just blink out. She thinks that, right? I'm worried about you. Okay, mom,
Yeah.
fine, thank you, right? But that ramified into thinking about everybody, right? Does this make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. It does make sense because I do self. That's one of my challenges in my prayer life is I tend to sometimes avoid it just because I already know how long the list is. And it's exhausting thinking about it. And then I'll be afraid that I missed somebody, and I have to constantly remind myself, no, what, you idiot, God knows what's in your head and in your soul. He knows what you're going to pray for. Stop worrying so much. But that's not the way I think. I don't think that's the way most, from what you're telling me, most women think. It's like, no, no, no. I have to have a list. I have to go down the list. I have to get everybody on the list.
Right.
Because if I don't, disaster, right?
Well, it feels like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It does feel. It does. Yeah, it does feel like that. It's, um,
well, it may be true. So one of the things in the Middle Ages that women were particularly considered skilled at was intercessory prayer. And not
oh
just
yeah.
Mary, but like nuns and such. Well, we have books from some of the German communities in the 13th and 14th century, the sister books. One, they're keeping a list of all the
Hmm.
sisters, obviously, but they're also,
Yeah.
um, the women's prayers for the community were considered particularly effective. Yeah,
Interesting.
that
Hmm.
does seem, it's like we default to making the list and remembering everyone and keeping everyone on it, and then the horror of the opposite of being left off the list
Yeah.
and not being prayed for.
Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting that women were seen as particularly adept at this intercessory prayer. It's maybe that's just because that's the way women are. They're so intensely concerned about everybody around them, and everybody else knows as well.
Hmm.
It's like you just feel that really really strong. Um, yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe because maybe the constant worry has a purpose. Hmm.
Well, we seem to do it. And then the
Yeah.
obverse of it is there were we were sort of compassionately thinking through reactions my colleagues in academia have had for various things about me, and one we talked about last week with the feeling of danger, of disruption, right? Something else
Hmm.
that one of them said in 2017 was she'd had to do all this emotional labor when people got upset about my writing about Milo. I was like, that's ridiculous. Why is it labor? But
Gosh, it's shrinking violets. But anyway, go on.
but I was thinking it's like it is labor attending to everybody, right? And taking
Yeah.
care of everybody and you know keeping them on the list. Yes. So this
Yeah.
base structure, it can have toxic forms, which we're acknowledging, but it also
Hmm.
has these kind of necessary social structuring forms that
Hmm.
women seem to do. And I
Yes.
it's like I default to it. If I go into a social media platform, I'm going to figure out who you are and I'm going to get you on the list. And I did that. When I was in Milo's chat, it drove him nuts. He hated it. It's like, why do you know all these people? And I'm like, well, but I have to study it.
Yeah, well, that's what you do. You among all other women I know, that's what you do. You study constantly. You study everything and everyone you meet all the time.
Well, that right. I mean, maybe I'm overdriven on that level, but
well, I mean, you're a professor. You chose your profession well.
But it is the way that I deal with like other stuff too. It's like my first job after college was making lists of donors, right? So yeah, I do lists. Maybe it is just me. But on the other hand, I think
I've done that too.
I think I can think of enough other examples to show that it seems to be a pattern of female organization.
It is, yeah.
And
honestly, I just thought it was me.
No, it's our social default. Figure out who everyone is, make the list, and that female solipsism is a subset of this mechanism, right? Of creating all these connections and names.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have Mel says a maternal instinct of keeping count of the litter. Yes, we got to take attendance.
Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4. If you lose one of them, you're in trouble. You've seen those. This is apparently a thing. Ducks walking across like parking lots and stuff. The babies have a tendency to drop down the drains.
Oh no!
There's one video I saw they all drop down the drain.
That's so sad.
A mother duck is running around the drain. It's like, my babies, what are they doing underneath there? Yes. Yeah. So we need to keep track of how many babies there are and don't lose them down the drain.
Keep all your ducks in a row.
Right. Okay. So that's wedding list, hit list. Oh, wait, Mel's made a list of lists. Okay.
Yay.
So oh yeah. Oh no, look at this. This is great. So she has if you don't put it on the list, it will be missed. Yes. Mel has made a lovely list here. Christmas list, thank you card lists.
Yep.
I don't get thank you cards from men. Okay, maybe if we have found a diagnostic feature for woman, we're done. Yep, right. God bless and all my friends and family. Maternal instinct of keeping count. Wedding list, attendance. Mel list. Haha. Yes. Okay. So we have an N of 3 that agrees. We make lists.
Yes.
All right. So primary mechanism. Secondary mechanism, therefore, feeds into, this is what happens when you make that wedding list then. Okay. So what do you do at the wedding, ladies? You are the center of it because you're the bride, right? And
you walk around making sure everybody's okay.
Right. Okay.
Having a good time.
So we're saying that the wedding, maybe the wedding is the primary female form of something, right? It's like you make a big list, you get everybody there, you dress up as the princess, and so all the men say, what this is what they started getting confused about with the queen language last time. They're just like, well, she's the prettiest. Okay. Well, we think maybe you're thinking primarily of weddings where, yes, the bride's always the prettiest, but she's always, if she's done her job well, surrounded by some other women who all dress alike.
Okay, I'm laughing because I'm remembering the picture.
Yeah, so she's surrounded by the women in pink. Not all of whom look happy, and the bridesmaids never quite look happy. They want to be a bridesmaid, right? Got to be on that list. But we can't understand being a woman if you don't understand the woman in her proper element, which is, well, let's see, what do I have here? Oh no, okay, so I've got the backwards part of my argument. I was going to go to court, but we need to get a few more steps there. Okay, so I've got my notes, but I'd say the tension is labor, keeping the list, inside outside. Oh, right. Okay. We need to take you through some steps. This is particularly for the men, but it's just Mel and some of the others watching, right? Okay. I think Annie is in there too. Women, we have a premise that women create structure. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And the men who were disagreeing with us from last week and then in various conversations were saying, okay, the queen is identified, simply as the prettiest, right? Although we have seen a correction in the rankings of things that she's prettiest and chaste, which agrees with my argument.
Yes, I saw that. That was interesting. Yeah.
Fewer sexual partners tends to put women up in rank as far as the men see them. Okay, so this guys is the problem that we have. So here we have beauty pageant. It's a classic one. So they're wearing more modest costumes than maybe they do now, right? If you look at a picture of women in the beauty pageant, well, what do the men see? I think is maybe the first question. We don't have any men to ask.
Oh, I know. I wish somebody would answer. I wish someone would answer that. I mean, I want to answer it, but it wouldn't matter. I mean, I am curious what the men see when they look at that.
Well, I have a theory, right? I think what they see is a competition for who's the prettiest.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay, look again. What are they? They're all alike.
Are they all alike?
Yes. I mean, maybe not the bridesmaids, but the beauty pageant women, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking of beauty pageant women, the old one from the 40s,
yes,
right?
the old one. I just went to a bad queen, good queen, because I was thinking, what's my next slide? They actually all look alike, right? The bridesmaids all look alike. They all end up in the same dresses,
right? They're all a certain type. They're all meant to look uniform.
They're all meant to look uniform. And in fact, if you look at women in alleged beauty contests, what they in fact do is they all look exactly alike.
So when you asked the question just a minute ago, I thought, what do you see when you look at that? I think I'm looking at their hair, how their different hairstyles. I'm looking at their face. I'm looking at what's different about them, right? I'm looking at really unique, but the men probably aren't doing that. They're probably just making a very flash. She's pretty. She's not. She's okay. They probably are ranking them that way just based on looks.
Oh, we know they do that and give them numbers from 1 to 10. but the thing is, one of the things that it always features in these so-called beauty competitions is they all normalize. I was, they're getting on the list of people who all look beautiful in this setting. But there's also this sense that the women in a group like this, like the beauty pageant, will in fact all look pretty much alike.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a type.
Which is strange if what matters to us is being picked out by the men. Doesn't that seem a little...
That is interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, as a woman, I'm looking at details. I'm looking at really the finer details. I don't think men do, right?
Well, that's not quite my point. My point is,
well, I mean, not if they all look alike. I mean,
they really all look alike. Yeah. So we need to say we have this phenomenon of the women make lists, create inside outside, and the ones inside all look alike.
So I think your point is that it can't be about attractiveness. Who the women see as their social ranks,
right?
It can't be, because they're all trying to conform to one another and how they look and how they dress,
right,
and how they act. So it has to be something different. It has to be something within their.
And this is our premise tonight. Okay, so we have this, so Queen, right, and here's Elizabeth and Madonna. Here's a contrast for you.
That's a terrible picture of Madonna.
Well, I mean, she was trying to be. So she looked a little better than she does now, right?
Well, that's a pretty low bar. Wow. That particular. I mean, she's had some really pretty pictures when she was young. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. I just thought it's just that
you're
when I saw that,
distracted by their differences.
Well, yeah, I'm distracted by how much Madonna looks like a man in that picture.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought, is this a Madonna, like a male Madonna lookalike?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
maybe I was sloppy with my pictures, but I was trying to say, like, if we're talking about Queen, both of
Yeah.
these women will count in the sort of generic sense of power woman, right?
Okay.
Here's
Yeah.
Elizabeth, here's Madonna. So Elizabeth is actual queen, Madonna a celebrity singer, and the of the things that we are usually seemingly arguing about. It's like is the woman as uh this kind of I've kind of lost my track. I made all those lists and now I'm in list mode. Um,
Because you have so many of them. Yeah.
uh, the problem of we're trying to describe the social network that the women create. And one is that network effect, right? So that just each woman can be making her own individual list. But then there's this next level up that we want to say, what is the phenomenon of the women? What do we do with those lists? What do we do as community? And does it have any structure? I think that's so. What does it have any structure, right? So if you take Elizabeth and Madonna just as the very prominent women characters, you could say, well, all women are going to try to fight to be the queen. Tends to be the expectation that the men have of us, that we just fight each other like crabs in a bucket to pull each other down to make sure that nobody's prettier than the other one, and crabs in
Well,
it.
two queens who are fighting for dominance will do that, but a larger group won't because most of the women in there know that, well, they can recognize in the personalities of the actual queens who is and who isn't one.
Oh, so a
And
queen is
you would be
actually
there.
I mean, we won't say alpha because that'll confuse the guys, but the queen
No.
is someone with a
Yeah.
particular ability.
Yes, she has skills. She is very skillful socially, and she also has the right personality for the group that she is in.
Hmm.
So if she's not in the right group, let's call her the queen bee. She's going to have to go to another hive because the other bees are going to reject her. But she may work great in another hive. But she has that type of personality. It's the right personality for the right hive, right? It's the right personality for the right social
Okay,
group.
so again, we're trying to strip down the qualities like good, bad. And we said, so list making can have good, bad versions of itself, but the list making
Yes,
itself is is a thing. Okay, now we need to
right.
think about what the queen does, which is where we got tangled up with people, say worrying about whether she's the prettiest or the sexiest or the that it
Yeah,
right that we
that's
need
not
some
it.
other
Yeah.
way. Okay, so we've got here's Queen Victoria, right, which will accept that she's a queen, an empress, and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay, so here she is with her family. Um,
Mhm.
Queen is the one that has the most kids. Is that the
I should think not. England would have had more queens than her at the time. Very large families. Um,
So it's
hmm.
not just the motherhood element that they're saying that we need to break this down a little bit more and saying a queen could be the one that has the most children, but Queen Elizabeth the First didn't have any, right? So okay, so it's not simply a
Correct.
maternal role. Okay,
Right. And it's difficult to use the actual queens as an example here because they were born into it. Um,
yeah, but I think you could be born into it and be good or bad at what we're trying to describe here, which is
this is
also the
true.
problem when
Yeah.
in the comparison with the men's hierarchy. The premise in the men's hierarchy is some men are simply going to be able to be in the alpha role. Going back to our names versus roles, right? That then some
Yes.
men will simply be able to be in the alpha role, and you can't like learn it.
You can't learn it. No, you can't learn it. Yeah. So we spoke about this a couple weeks back. I think you and Kilt were talking about this. It wasn't last week. It might have been the Barbie
Mm.
discussion. Um, you were talking about hostessing versus being a queen. You can be a good hostess, and I think being a good hostess is something you can learn. But being a queen is something I think it's in your personality and your ability to wield the power of the lists,
Well, the
right?
thing is, I think
And
hostessing is actually what I'm thinking of as the queen role.
I think it's part of it.
That it's
It's a big part of it. It's for a good queen. It's a big part
right.
of it. Maybe even the biggest. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's in the Barbie discussion. We thought we'd made it clear with the hostessing, but it got tangled up in some other stuff because she's so pretty, right?
Yeah.
So here's
Right.
Victoria. It maybe it's not her maternal role, but here this one, she's receiving these other women. I think they're looks like the woman has a veil. I'm not I it's like Victoria receiving the women. So here
Right.
we have, I think, starting to get to the actual social role that, I mean, again, and another criteria that Vox has always had for his sociosexual ranks is if they're real in human behavior, you should be able to see them historically,
Oh, I see. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And if they're
Yeah.
real as something characteristic that you can then use to predict people's behavior, one that you can't learn to do it and say I'm going to be, I'm going to be an alpha and everybody's going to follow me, right? That
Yeah.
zero.
So Queen Victoria is fascinating because I'll try to find the name of the actual documentary and send it to you. But she was born to be queen. It's true. She was trained for it. But I think if she had never been in royalty, she still would have had this personality. She had a very commanding
Right.
personality. On her 18th birthday, she basically kicked her mom out of the house. It's like, beat it. I'm in charge now. She wasn't treated very well by her
Mm,
mother. She was horribly, horribly controlled by her because her mother was using her for social advancement. Right? It's like, oh, look at me! I've got the monarch. I've got her right here.
wow, I didn't know
And
that.
she just, oh yeah, she controlled her. She slept in the same room with her until her 18th birthday, and when she woke up on her 18th birthday, she moved her out. And I think her first meeting was with the prime minister, saying, "I want a partnership." Very tough cookie, and she had some skills. She had some
Mm,
political skills, right? But so she's kind of fascinating. So she actually, historically, she's a very good example of somebody who had the right. She had the right connections. She had the right training, but she also had the right personality to take advantage of those things.
right. And this is I the the styles of leadership between women and men of and that sense of, could you tell, see, I'm not sure at what level of predictability a lot of these things work, but um, that if there is a woman, I mean, we've all known women who are, you're actually happy to have them around, right? Because they are the
Yes.
good, I mean, that they'll not just like, well, secretaries, not just ones that will keep the good lists and keep everything running together and functioning and such like that, but all the ones that will be somehow the ones that make stuff happen. And we can
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, maybe the left has more of these because women do this. we're good at organizing, not just weddings and parties and stuff like that, but I don't know. Phyllis Schlafly keeps springing to mind, right? Of women who are able to organize, campaigns and such like that. That
Yes.
there's something, that kind of skill, that without these
Mm-hmm.
women in your community, nothing gets done.
True. Yeah, and some people would argue that when women went to work and stopped staying at home, they had less time to do those kinds of
Right.
things, and so the societies were more easily taken over by bad actors because of that. Because there weren't women sitting at home watching what was going on, saying, "Oh, I don't think so.
Right.
I'm gonna put a stop to that."
Well, and that's it. That this is another level of like the right now we're just looking at the kind of particular um, roles that women are taking as women
Yes.
in community, and then to ramify that out to say it's like, when does society work well? When women are, it's like we say, when men are doing their particular jobs of being fathers and husbands and
Hmm.
such. It's like when women are doing their queening, and we're talking about queens, right? When they're doing their queening well,
Yeah.
certain kinds of things happen that can't happen otherwise.
Correct. Yes.
And one of them I think is going on in this image with Victoria receiving the other women. It's something about, and this, when we're talking about this sociosexual hierarchy problem, it's like this woman with these other women around her creates something that can't happen unless there's a queen involved. I think, right? And I mean, I tend to project out of academia because it's the women I know, right? But we can have queens in academia too that are the ones that are really good at creating a kind of court. How about that?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah,
We were
I
going to
understand
Bridgerton,
that.
right? Court. And
Okay.
and Charlotte, I mean, the character in the television theories, right? But also Charlotte did this, right? She created the London season, as far as I understand it.
Oh, right. She set the tone.
Quite literally, right?
Yeah. It's good to be queen.
but there plenty of queens couldn't have done this. I think there's this is where we're saying, is there a hierarchy, not just of social rank that you have because of your marriage, right? Which see, that's the problem. It's like we were trying to, is the queen simply the one married to the king? Well, technically, yes,
Yes,
as
yes
the
and no.
office, but
Right.
Charlotte,
Yeah.
as the one who, at least in Bridget, as they're portraying in Bridgerton, creates the London season, which is happening because of Parliament meeting and stuff like that. But she creates this whole social, obviously, lists and network. That's the whole show is about that, right? Do you get invited to the parties?
Yeah. Now, I have never watched. I'm familiar with that kind of genre. They must have taken it from that part of history. So,
Yeah, just project Jane Austen onto it and you'll be fine.
yes. Yes.
Or Georgette
Yeah.
Heyer or
Sense and
something like that.
sensibility.
So yeah, all of it. It's like the season, which had to do with when Parliament was meeting in the city. So all the noble families are in town, but I mean, they could be in town and do nothing, right? It seems to
Yeah.
me, Charlotte, and I did look this up a little bit after watching the show, that it's around her that this whole sort of network of parties and receptions and
And what is her purpose in doing this and setting this season?
what is indeed her purpose. So she's here with her court, right, of ladies, right? And I think this is I think this is where the bridal party stuff comes from, right? It's like you have the bride with her attendants.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Her ladies in waiting.
Right. And they all basically end up looking like her, right? I think, yes, here I have a close up, right? So she dresses away and they all imitate her.
That still goes on today, doesn't it? With influencers.
Yes. Are we starting to understand women a little better and stating the completely bleeding obvious, right?
Yes, we want to fit in, and those of us who don't, well, I mean, you can be happy that way. Better have the right personality for it, though. It's like it's conform or be cast out, and I think that's driving a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for here? Well, the copying of the queen, the way she dresses and talks, and where she goes, and what hairdresser she favors, and yeah.
You have seen Bridgerton.
I haven't, but I think it's a recurring theme when it comes.
You don't even have to see it, and you know what these things are like. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so the list making is inside outside. It's creating inside and outside. Definitely, you can be cast off the list, and that's the worst thing you could be, right? You're outcast. You're no longer part of that inside group. But the creation of this should be counterintuitive based on the way the men do things in their ranking of women, because it's like you always want to be the most beautiful. Is that in fact the way women behave?
Well, I mean, women want to be the most beautiful.
Do we?
I think we do. I mean, look how much money we spend on makeup and hair.
Do we want to, in fact, be the most beautiful?
Oh, I think we know we're not going to be. But
wait. I've got some questions. I'm a guy. What was the question? They look different to me. Strongly disagree. Wow, no, they look totally different. Okay, Cal Bear is disagreeing with our claim that the women
Interesting.
in that beauty pageant all look the same. I think they all
Well,
look
they
the
all
same.
had
They're
it.
wearing exactly the same bathing suit,
They all have the same body type.
and they all have the same body
Definitely.
type.
They could have been. They could have been. This could have been a line of the Rockettes
Oh,
easily
we're gonna get
because
to
they
that
were the
one.
Rockettes. I know. I was just saying they were all picked to have the exact same body proportions.
Yes, yes. And so Carol
Yeah.
Bear is disagreeing with us, which is good. Um, wait, and
See,
Annie
because
and here
he
are talking. Fight to be the queen. No, we don't. It's just shit testament. It's about keeping the hive healthy. We don't fight to be the queen. In fact, most women are not trying to be the queen.
right. I agree. I agree with that. It's only two women who want to both be the queen and are
Right.
that would fight each other for it. They would fight each other for over dominance, and there can be only one. It's not just the Highlander. It's also for
Yes.
queens.
Right, and that's what I mean. That's obviously highly dramatic, but like you can have alpha fights too. It's like claiming that women do nothing but fight and men are all peaceful and hierarchical is nonsense. It's
Well, okay, but you would never have alphas in the same group, though, would
no,
you? I don't
you have
know. No,
one.
I don't think so.
That's the point. You have
Yeah.
one in the group, and so I mean, by age, the Kelbear can. The top girl was easily the most attractive.
Which one? Was it Miss New York? Who was
I don't
it?
know. I think they
Miss
all
New
look the
Jersey?
same. I think that
I want to know what Calbear thinks.
some are like heavy, chunky. They were all literally the same.
Heavy and chunky. Oh my gosh, no, they weren't. Not even a little bit.
No, I mean, okay, you were saying you were looking at the different hairstyles and stuff like that. I think
I was. I would look at the details. Then the men are looking at the bodies.
okay, I do have a theory about this, and I'm trying to get us enough detail to get to, right?
Okay, all right.
And
I'll slow it
well,
down.
no, I mean, well, this is the problem, right? It's like we have to argue through each layer of the claim. I don't.
Yeah.
We had Mel agreeing with us about the lists, right? So we have at
Mhm.
least the list making is put that pick back up. No, I'm just going to keep arguing about it with the. We had the queens in
I didn't know
their
that picture was
matching
going to get so much
costumes,
attention.
right? That fashion only
Yeah.
works if women all want to look the same, right?
You know what struck me was that Miss New York's hair was so big, and I thought nothing's changed.
Well, that, but
it's it's well, I mean, for certain hairstyles in certain parts of the country don't change that much.
I think I generically what the horror women have is of jarring with the group. And yes, it is.
Yeah.
I agree. It is possible to pick out, one slightly prettier than the others. Fine, but for the most part, the competition is always to similarity.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And I actually was thinking about this as that in fact the you've seen those ones where you get one by countries, right? The most beautiful women of the countries, but
Yeah.
there's also all of those pictures where they blend a picture, right? And the most beautiful is always like the average of all of these pictures.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
the beauty is actually a great averaging.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting.
So you, in fact, okay. So here, this is the queen in Charlotte with her. They all have the stupid hair with the wigs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The
Looks like rolled up cotton.
the wigs in Bridgerton, they're really having fun with those. I don't know that the wigs were that silly at the time, but maybe they actually were. But okay, so you start doing stupid fashion things to fit with whatever fashion
Yes.
is at the time, right? And that it. And you do want to stand out, but only stand out within the context of the fashion that is the thing.
Correct. You cannot outshine the queen. You can't do anything different. So you have to conform to how she's dressed.
Which was my theory about it's like how do you know who the queen is?
Well, everybody will be, as in that Bridgerton picture, everybody will be standing around her. looking at her, waiting for her to talk and waiting to follow her
Right.
cues.
I mean,
So
they
yeah,
all look like her, right?
yes, right. So how would you pick out the woman that they're all trying to emulate, right?
Exactly.
And it would be the woman they're paying attention to, the woman who's commanding their
Well,
attention.
that's that. Yeah, in a particular social group, it's like with the men, right? Someone was suggesting to me there are studies showing the power person in the room is where the one everyone's looking at all the time.
Right.
But there's so they're all going to be looking at her. But I think you could do an interesting. It would be like could get mice or something, right? You could figure out which one was the queen. Was if she changes, all of the other ones change too. The
Yes.
queen is
Yeah.
somehow the one socially, and this is why I think there could be someone who was technically the queen as a because of her marriage to the king or her social role or something like that, and in
Uh-huh.
fact not behave as the queen in my imagining of this thing, right? And
Hmm.
the social queen will be the one. All of the other women and the men won't necessarily know this is happening, right?
Hmm.
All of the
Yeah.
women look alike, except for what Kelbear is saying, and they're some of them are slightly different sizes. Suddenly they'll all look alike. And you'll say, why did they all do
Hmm.
that, right? It's like the birds all turn purple at the same time, and they're all purple, and
Yeah.
then they all turn green, and then you're just like, what is going on? Why are they all changing? There's
Right.
some
Because the
woman
queen.
that's
Yeah.
leading them in that,
Right.
and she's the one they're all looking at. They're all going to look like. And Calbert, I'm sorry about this, but their beauty will be affected by her setting the standard.
Yes. Yeah, it will. And in fact, in the 1940s and 50s, there's not a direct. This was more an issue in this 1960s through the 1990s,
Mm,
I think, when it changed and Twiggy set the standard of beauty to be very, very
yeah,
skinny. And that made a comeback in the 90s, with, oh gosh, why can't I remember her name right now? I can see her. She had the waif look, they called it. But there was a brief time in the 80s where models would be much curvier. I don't want to say heavier because they weren't heavy. They were just big. They were
yeah,
tall, and they had very large breasts and very shapely hips. That was the throwback to the
right,
1940s. Right. So body type doesn't have anything to do with it. It has to do with who's setting the standard at any one
right. And
time.
then all of them will. So Kilber says, yeah, there's an orbit like planets around the sun. Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
And so this social phenomenon, you can see it in everything, right? And this is so here are the young women at the reception. They're all dressed the same. That's literally the way you can
Yep.
tell.
Yeah. Who's the bride? I don't know.
Well,
What is
but the
it?
women are all dressed.
Yeah.
These are all the women. They're the young women, and they're all in the empire waist outfits and stuff. You can they
Yeah.
might all and in Bridgerton, it's funny because the dressmaker is one of the main characters, and the women are all going to the dressmaker, and she's doing these different little things and stuff, but they're all like little different things, variants on the theme of whatever it is that is the
Yeah.
fashion.
Right. So were the women that were going to the dressmaker trying to find just a little something, a little piece that would make them stand out a bit while still looking like the queen?
Just like all of the other women, yeah. Although, so Charlotte,
But they're
I
all
mean, it's
doing it.
like I think I'm trying to get the subtleties of the expect. We'll know who the queen is because though she's the one that all the rest of them try to look like.
Right.
Um,
Right. She sets the
the
fashion.
women will all basically try to look like each other.
Yeah. Yeah, we will always try to conform,
And
right?
this is why we get people
Yeah.
complain about feminine beauty standards. Why do I have to look like that? It's like, well, indeed, why do you? I
You don't have to, but you have to be a strong enough person to be okay
Which
with
is
that.
really hard. It's
It is
really, really
hard. It's
hard. You
very
know how
difficult.
hard it. But
That's why there's so many eating disorders among young girls, right? And they can't meet that standard.
but the standard's mainly in their head because they're looking at the other
It is in
women,
there.
and
Well, it's
no. But what we're trying to describe is the phenomenon, right? And it's
Yeah.
so hard not to
Yes.
blend with all of the
Right.
other women. It's like I wear an absolute uniform for women in academia. We all look exactly alike. And I noticed this at a conference once, and I'm like, I'm not quite in it in my outfit here, but it's like, colorful top, black slacks. Like every
Yeah.
single one of us are dressed
That's funny.
exactly the
I
same.
remember when I was, yeah, when I was in college, it was fun to pick out what major somebody was because everybody always dressed the same within their major
Okay, there
too.
you go.
The English majors were the girls who were English majors were particularly I want to say frumpy, although I don't think it was really frumpy because nobody's that young to be frumpy, really. But yeah, it was all yeah. They had a certain style, very long skirts and floppy sweaters, and yeah,
And it's
it was
hard.
definitely a
It's hard
thing.
as a woman if there, and this you could say this is why, the sort of strange hair colors and piercings and this and that. It's like, why do they all like suddenly
Yeah,
change and they all look alike? It's a curious. I mean, this is why we're saying there is a structure. They're not just trying to crab bucket themselves and kill each other, right? They are actually
no, they're
trying to
not. The
belong.
opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's the opposite of that. Yeah, that's why I said last week somebody mentioned crabs and bugs, and it's absurd. No, it's the exact opposite. They are trying to conform to one another, and the group itself is trying to conform to the unspoken leader, the one with the strongest personality. And you hope it's a good queen. It
Well,
is
that
always,
and there is our problem, right? It's like they're trying to conform
yeah.
to, and the women who are able to do this kind of leading somehow, however they do it,
Hmm.
um, can do it for good or ill, right? And that's we can see that in the
Yes.
Heathers and Mean Girls, but you can also see the good version in Clueless, who
Yeah.
is setting the standard. And I mean, you know, we need to do just a reading of Clueless because it's actually a lovely rendition of Jane Austen's Emma.
I'll have to watch
Yeah,
it
so it's
first.
great, and it's like what, and I,
It looks
it's very
very
cute,
cute.
and it shows you what a good. I mean, Cher is definitely the queen of this
Yeah.
story. What a good one can do.
Hmm.
Okay, so they all end up looking alike. Now, what then in fact does the queen do? Oh, well, okay, I put in there's a blending here of problems because on the one hand, so in Bridgerton there's a character who is, spoiler alert, um, publishing a little newsletter that talks about all of them, right? And
Oh,
Lady
right.
Whistledown, right? Who, right?
Yes.
So there's this, and what's interesting in the series, the story is there's a tension between what Lady Whistledown is able to observe and talk about, and the Queen's ability to control her um, tone setting, right? And so that
Hmm.
I'm not sure that Penelope, who is Lady Whistledown, sorry, um, is it's like that puts her in direct competition with the Queen in a way nobody else is.
It
Yeah,
would.
because she's
Yeah.
the one who is
Yeah.
like in competition with the Queen to describe the meaning of the group.
Right. Right. And she may be describing it in a way the queen doesn't approve of or didn't mean, even. She may be just trying to create a different narrative altogether.
What she does is talk about who's in, who's out, and of course the Queen in the story is the one who picks the beauty of the season to be the most desirable of the girls, her diamond for the year, and that
Hmm.
whoever wins the diamond gets the top princess prize, right?
Oh my gosh, the pressure.
Well, that it creates the story, right, for
Yeah.
the series. But I thought that was it was a nice sort of a confirmation of my claim that these structures are real enough to be recognizable in drama, as well as in actual
Yeah.
history. That
Easily. Yes.
the ability to name all the characters and decide who's in and out is really powerful.
Yes. Yeah. Naming things is powerful, right? And remembering people's names is too. Instantaneous relationship. exist, even if there isn't one there yet. There could be,
Right.
just because of the name exchange.
Yes, and if you think about
Yeah.
what's happening in the tone is like they're being presented and named and,
Yep.
okay, so what's the point of the queen in all of this courting and tone setting and getting all the girls to look like? And Calbert, no, you're wrong, because Calbert is saying the clothes hairstyle sure can alter it, but guys can see through that. No, you can't. That
That sounds like a challenge.
well, so what's interesting there, the challenge is there's regular demonstrations on women's makeup level, right? And it's like no makeup, oh, she looks terrible. Light day makeup, oh, she looks natural. Heavy makeup, blah 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 blah. It's like, and I've experimented with this in my own social life, right? It's like a little bit of makeup, and guys like, talk to me. No makeup, nobody. I'm invisible, right? I never. I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah,
I've
that's
one
true.
time in my life worn too much makeup, and I had, it was a fun thing to do when I did my talk in Australia, and I was like, "Woo, is that in the mirror?" Right? So, fine.
Yeah.
They're levels, right? And the creating of the right degree of invitation of attention. Women work on that a lot. Um,
They do, and this actually works for men and women.
Calbert,
You
we're
carry
trying to
yourself
see through the camouflage. So are we.
You can't. I mean, well, I was just about to say, men and women both. You carry yourself differently depending upon how you dress.
Yes.
A man in a suit is going to carry himself much differently than a man in a pair of jeans and a
Yes.
t-shirt. He's going to do this naturally. And now women, it's the same thing, but we have a much wider variety of types of clothes to wear, and we will carry ourselves differently in each one of them. And yeah, it depends on what kind of image you want to project, but it's not something you can see through because it actually changes how you act from the inside out.
Yeah, Calbert is disagreeing with us. What
That's
no,
okay.
what we'll tell you absolutely, and I think I said this last week too, is like, women judge men on their shoes. And I know that because Milo
Oh,
said
yes.
so.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
It's like it
My husband wore beautiful shoes when I met him, and he was in his 20s, and I was really surprised, and it was noticeable in a good way.
see. So
Yeah.
your sneakers are not impressing us.
No.
Right, and the thing is that, so we're judging you too. Guess what? Actually, we should do some episodes on that, how we judge the men.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
would be good.
Anyway,
That
so
would be
so
good.
we're making
Yeah.
these lists, and the queen is setting her up. What is the point of all of this? And this is, guys, Calbert, you do need to know this, because what does the queen do? They're dancing. I mean, this I think is
I can only guess she's making sure everybody's having a good time and behaving.
okay, that's just social, right? That's just the party. Now, the
Yeah.
thing that Fox challenged me on when I was saying, there's, I think, Calbert, what you're looking for is the princess, not the queen. And to you, the princess is going to, they all look alike. Trust me on this. I go to the next slide. They all look alike, okay? You can look at the chorus line and tell me which ones you see differently. That what the queen is doing socially is, in fact, bringing together the couples. And this is, I'll go back to the couples dancing. In the London season thing, the whole point of all of this is it's a marriage matchup, right? That it's
Oh,
not just
right.
for,
Okay.
it is actually sex. Which is, if you watch
Yes,
Bridgerton,
that
you
is
may
an
need to
element.
close your eyes at certain points, because they, unfortunately are Netflix, right? And so they decided to show you lots of, like,
yeah.
skin. But the point of it all was to present the marriageable young people to each other and get them all mated.
Yes. Yes. That's very much a Jane Austen theme as
Right.
well. For all the in-town parties.
But that,
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to me to be, I started thinking about, think about examples. It's what happened in the medieval courts too. I mean, Knight's Tale is delightful, around the tournaments and stuff like that. It's like, actually, the thing is, my theory about all of the women looking alike is they're normalized to the average. The most beautiful, the beautiful ones are going to be like all look alike. And that is actually genetically, it's if you want breeding pairs, you do want the ones that conform most to your beauty type, because those are probably the ones that are like healthiest. I
Interesting.
think. right?
Yeah, because that's why they're seen as beautiful,
I think
right?
so.
Because
Which does
it's,
fit with what
yeah,
Kilbear's claiming in the chat, because they're saying it's, hip hip waist hip ratio and stuff like that. Yes, I do agree with that.
yeah,
I think they normalize
right.
to the beauty standard, and you want, it's like guys, you can have lots and lots of wives. Women, we get, I mean, even the least chaste can't get through that many partners.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, well, maybe prostitutes,
No,
but you can't have that many children as a woman. It's there's an upper
right.
limit.
No, men can have hundreds, so that's just a
Right.
fact. They can have more than that, even in the natural way throughout their life.
Thousands, right? Women, I mean, what it would
Yes, they could.
20, right? There's a limit between pregnancy and your own
St.
lifetime.
Catherine of Siena was the youngest of 22.
What?
St. Catherine of Siena was the youngest of
Okay,
22.
so there you go. 20, 22, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the world record, Guinness record, was 60 or something like that. Lots of sets of
Oh,
twins and
yes. Okay.
triplets.
Yes, you'd have to have
Yeah,
multiple births.
yeah, and of course an early marriage at like 14 or something like that too. So
Talk about keeping
not
track
the
of all the
ideal or the
kids.
norm. I know.
So the thing is, I think, and gets to my, theorizing about the maiden mother crone relationships. I mean, there's historically a role of, the crone level, your matchmaker, right, for the young people. You're trying to find the good pairs of both lineage and family and stuff like that. But I really do think, and I'm happy to be contested about this, but feminine beauty, we see it as it standardizes. I think the women all want to look most alike to each other, because that is actually a good beauty marker of everybody being healthy, which I think is a
I hadn't
problem.
thought
Like,
of it
as
that like
you're
that.
worrying about, it's like people being overweight altogether, but the group is going to like normalize to a particular size.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was discussing this with somebody just today. The fact that women never stop trying to set people up. It's just what we do.
Yes.
If we haven't set people up yet, we want to, right? That's a real interesting observation about the whole point of the the show Bridgerton is she's setting people up for
That's
marriage.
the entire
And yeah,
plot.
this is what women do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Women do this all the time. If they don't, they want to. They think about it.
Certainly the older you get, you're like, yes, get married, have kids.
Yeah.
And so I think the good, you can tell good functioning society has this facilitating of
Yeah.
social
A
interaction,
good
the knowledge
thing.
of all the names and the families, and the
Hmm.
one of my favorite, it's like, um Alessandra Strozzi, we have some letters from her in 15th century Florence, and her sons have been exiled because her husband was exiled for politics, and she's constantly writing them letters about, she's, unfortunately, because of the fact that the male heads of the family are in exile, she can't really like make the social connections, but she's watching all the
Oh,
girls and
oh, yeah.
trying to figure out which ones are they going to be able to marry her sons when, if they can ever come back to Florence, which they do eventually.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that feeling.
She made good use of her time.
Well, her husband had died of plague, right? So she was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To get the full sense of the female sociosexual hierarchy, we have to also have these different, what you are when you're young and marriageable, what you are when you're the mother taking attendance on the kids, and what you are when you can't have any more children and are still invested in the functioning of the community.
Right.
Yes, and all of that, I think, is in fact necessary for the healthy production of more families.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't think women ever stop doing that, even if they've never had any
Mm.
children. They still look at other people and say, they would make a great couple. It's just, they do. We do. I mean, we do this. It's all part of making a home, making a larger home around you in your
Well,
community.
yeah.
You know, and we don't put that into words, but it's worth thinking it, right? I mean, we're putting it into words right now because we're trying to figure it out and come up with, a solid structure that the men can actually identify and go, oh, okay, that's what they're doing, right? But it's always going on in our heads.
It is always going on in our heads, and I mean, that we built up from, we're always making lists of, and very much at the relationship level, you can see the way in which these things function by as I understand it for the men, right? They highly respect the men who have physical strength.
Yes.
And the leader men will be looked to by the other men to lead, right? And we're saying they're
Yes.
leader women in this situation too, but they lead not. I mean, they lead not for let's go into battle unless they're in aberrant situations like Queen Elizabeth at whichever battle she makes that valiant speech at or didn't. But the women are in fact leading in terms of. I think Charlotte was unusual. Queen Charlotte was unusual because she actually did devise all of this social interaction, but that we have images of that, the women being the ones in like Beowulf bringing round the mead cup to the men, and bringing gifts and relationships and such. Women are one way or the other. I mean, they can be toxic and trying to disrupt these relationships, but they're also typically the ones behind the ones that work, I think.
Yes. Yes. On some level, they will be, women will be involved in seeing that relationships come together and that they work. They try to help. But yeah, and the bad queens will try to destroy them so that they can set up other people
Right.
and use people like chess pieces. That's thing, right? That's evil queen stuff, and it does happen, but hopefully you don't meet anybody like that.
Well, the problem for the sad thing for women is there's always, here's the little girls and they're practicing at being all the same, right? Look, they dress them in exactly the same dresses.
Yeah.
When they're doing the little girl cup. I was at one of our fencing tournaments some years ago, and I think we're in Columbus, Ohio. There was a one of these little girl beauty pageant activities, which was pretty interesting, right? It's like, why would you want to practice being in this look-alike contest? Well, clearly we do, right? There's some level of, I want to make sure that I'm pretty like these other girls.
Yeah. I hate to see those things.
They had a lot of
I
makeup
don't
on
like
for
the
6-year-olds. I agree.
yeah, they dress them like little adults, and it just doesn't look right. But also, it's a bad idea to put young girls in a position where they're judging their own looks against other girls.
Well, for the reasons we've been talking about, right? Because it's what we default
Yeah,
to in the first place.
right. And so it's just going to reinforce insecurity and judgmentalism that might not necessarily be cultivated in somebody so young.
Mm.
Their personality hasn't set yet, right? So they have a chance not to do that.
Well,
I
okay,
think it
so
would be too sad
we
to,
do need in the
yeah,
long run to deal with the sort of how do we develop good versions of this.
yeah. How do you cultivate that? Well, a lot of it comes down to who your mother was,
Mm.
right, and how you were raised that way, and your own personal family dynamic too. Yeah, I was going to say more, but I realize I'm getting probably more confusing to the men because it's getting more
Okay,
complicated.
so yeah, so then I had some. Well, we only have a few more minutes, so maybe we should take some questions. We do have we've got Miley Cyrus here going off, right? We'll go back to the
Oh,
dance and the queens, and just say the girls at the party in fact all want to look alike because they want to fit in with the group, but they also and one I do have this. I They all look alike. They come together. The point being to make couples. Okay, good. I got through everything there. Um, the men say they're picking out the prettiest, but I actually think the prettiest one is their wife. in the long run, and that they're ranking them all. But there is my sense is most of these girls look basically alike, and
They do.
right,
Have very similar
yeah,
features. Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's a certain type.
um, I mean, the older I get, the more they all look alike. For goodness sake, I can barely tell my students apart. Right?
It's like, what are you, 12?
No. But it's like I mean, when you're in the mix, the fine differences are gonna really like strike you, right? I'm telling you guys, once you get
Yeah.
older, they all look alike. So pick one and be nice to her.
That's
But
right.
on the other hand, the girls are going to pick you, which is the thing that we haven't talked about, which I've been saying.
Shh, don't tell
Yeah, we
them.
pick you because you have to get us to say yes. So you better impress us and wear nice shoes. We can tell you how to do that later. Like how
True.
the men, you really seriously, it's Valentine's Day. You wanted to impress us. You want us to tell you how? Ain't telling. We're gonna keep you guessing.
Tune in later for more.
Hey, I got the list of to be continued, right? What do you want us to talk about next?
Yeah.
We're doing Putin and Tucker next week, so you can consider it for a
Yeah.
bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cal Bear agrees with us. The girls do the picking. Yes, we do, and we promise you wear nice shoes. That works every time. Um,
Absolutely.
Putin and Mel
Nice shoes
says
and a haircut
Putin.
go a long way.
What?
So nice shoes and a haircut go a long way.
Okay, well we can end. No, this we'll just to sort of dither away in the end of the very stressful last week. The length of men's hair and whether they should have beards. I think I
Oh,
know.
no,
I
no,
think
no, let it go.
I think we.
What did I
This
do?
is great. I think we should do one where we judge them. They're always
Oh,
judging
gosh.
us and telling us that we don't have the right hip waist ratio. But I think we just get to judge them.
We had this discussion about men in long hair versus short hair last year.
Well,
That was
in
so
our
funny.
writing or on stream,
It might have been in DCR. Yeah.
we were
Yeah. On Telegram.
we were
Yeah.
debating the long hair versus short hair on men.
But I think you guys did talk about it on the stream too. Long versus short hair.
I'm blanking. I don't remember
Yeah,
it
I
all.
can't remember for sure, but yeah. That was funny.
We do have some more slides of different kinds of queen dynamics, but I'm feeling that it'd be better just to leave it at this.
Oh, can you show Scarlet?
Oh, okay. I'll go to Scarlet. What were
That's a
you
good
wanting to
one.
think about with
Yeah.
Scarlet?
Well, I mean, that picture between her and Melanie and Ashley in between, it's the perfect picture of evil queen and good queen, and people will recognize them immediately
With yes,
because they're such famous characters. But Melanie is sweet and thoughtful, and she doesn't get a lot of the attention of the men, but she gets the attention of the king, right?
right. Which makes
Was
Scarlet. She's going to have to
yeah.
get Ashley because
Right. Scarlett was in love with Ashley, but she didn't have a chance with him because he was in love with Melanie. And they were two completely different characters. Completely different. Scarlett was a high manipulator of men and women, both.
right.
Right. Socially, she would manipulate the women, and in the men, she would just toy with because she liked the attention. And Melanie was very genuine. And I think they both exhibited personality aspects of the good queen and the evil queen very well.
So I think the problem for our examples is in stories there's going to be a focus on an individual woman, a character, and that is the and I have this theory about the woman as the focus of the quest, right? Which is
Uh-huh.
Guess why I think you guys want us to be unpredictable. Um, and being able to see, and therefore they're going to stand out because they actually drive the drama, right? Which
Hmm.
is different from, there's no drama in all of us looking alike. We just do it, right?
Maybe that's why we create so much drama outside of. Maybe if we were more individualistic in our clothing choices, we wouldn't be. Nah, we would still be
Okay,
dramatic.
well, this is a nice sort of question to end on, right? It's like, so what's the drama about, right? Because we most want to belong in the court and be part of the dance, right? And yeah, I started with the bad things women do, right? I think we've solved the solipsism, right? We're happy with that as a
Yeah,
social
yeah, yeah,
social.
it's an inelegant, yeah, relationships.
Okay, the passive aggressiveness, well, emotional, given to drama, right? Um, I mean, it does occur to me that we just gonna have to do. I think the prime the great prime story involving women is courtship, which is what you're seeing with
Hmm.
the Melanie and Scarlett, right?
Yes,
And
right,
that's the one great drama. It's when you get to choose your husband, and then the rest of it's
right.
and it's funny when I do my Tolkien lecture that it flips, right? It's Tolkien, has all these adventures in life and war and stuff like that, and then he and Edith get married and basically nothing happens. He teaches, he writes. It's, that
Nothing happens except brilliance,
right, but
right?
now this is, I'm blanking on why I was thinking about this. That I'm sorry, I don't. I'm really really tired. It's been a
Oh,
hard week. Um,
yeah, and it's late.
yes, I'm keeping you up well past your bed. they're on the east.
I don't
They're on the
sleep.
East Coast.
I don't
All right.
sleep.
I haven't slept much in a while either. Um.
I haven't slept in about 16 years.
Oh. Oh.
That's just me. I'm a worrier.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
see. You're
so
trying to keep everybody alive by thinking
yeah,
about them all the time.
I am.
Yes. The no. But the. I'm gonna have to go back think about this. There's a reason that all of our great
Fine.
stories are the choice of the mate, right? And then after that, unless you're like disrupting a lot by running away or cheating on each other or something like that. There's no more drama,
Right,
right? The great drama, which we tell
right,
over and over and over again, is the courtship and the choice because it's the big one that
right.
determines everything
It's
else.
Helen of Troy, or
Yeah,
it's King David and Bathsheba, and
right.
there's just always cheating involved, and war, and yeah,
Yeah. But I
right.
think there's other things to break down. But we got to keep going back to the not just that drama, which is always what we focus on, and what in any situation, the woman is the center of it, and
Hmm.
as her aspiration for a husband, and she's the center of his attention to find a bride, and that
So
particular narrative, Happy Valentine's Day, is
yeah,
critical, obviously, to the survival of everybody because you need parents. But that is not, in fact, the social structure that we're trying to describe the women acting within. I think that was my idea, right?
I'm wondering if in the absence of enough, husband material, if there are too many single women, if they create more drama.
As in with Gone with the Wind, because the men have been killed.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but I mean, it's a good. It just in general, but it's a good example. All the men have been killed and have been away, and that's yeah. I can think of some personal examples like that. All the men go away to war, and drama happens. You
Right.
know, and yeah, I guess that's true. I guess that's true. Even Little Women was based on that too, wasn't it?
I don't know
Right.
that one
The
as
father
well.
the father's away at the Civil War, and the
Okay.
mother's left with the five daughters at home to raise, and they're all in various teenage years.
Mm.
So a very, very delicate time for them. and there's no man in the house. So yeah, it was an interesting idea for a play. Oh, sorry, it's a book. It's later play, right?
Okay, well, this
Yeah.
is a good thought to end on. It's like there's the distinction between the social structure that the women create, which we've only just started like showing, and it's one that the sort of the list making, which is attention to all the players. And then the next, the social layer up from that is some women are able to focus that kind of activity, and that was what we were calling queens, right? The hostess,
Yes.
the one
Yes.
that establishes the standard for everybody to live by, and that people do tend to, right? And you'll see that you'll see those queen effects in social situations, and most women are in fact looking for who's the queen. They don't want to be the one that has to lead everybody. I promise you,
Right.
they really, really don't. And they're very uncomfortable when they don't have someone taking that role.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily fight over it. They'll be actually happy once they figure out who it is. And then she takes care of everybody, and she takes care of everybody. And
Yes.
when you have a good situation like that with someone who is good at taking care of everybody, things work really, really well. It's very
Yeah,
smooth,
yeah.
and everybody's happy, and I've been occasionally in a situation where a woman is really good at that, and it's just like you're not even aware that she's doing it, and it's all great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's like magic.
That is different from the romantic drama of courtship. And what I see as a lot of what the male sociosexual hierarchy discussion has been around is just that. Maybe that was what I was thinking of. The male sociosexual hierarchy tends to focus, in my understanding of it, simply on the acquisition of the mate and the courtship and stuff, where a lot of the drama for women happens too. But that's different from these other social structuring activities that we're trying to describe.
So I think the acquisition of a mate by the alpha is secondary to other things, whereas for the women, I think it would be primary.
Yes, but I think it doesn't play in the women's relationship to the other women's structure in quite the same way.
Right,
Yeah.
You're right, because if it did, that's where the drama would come in. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to be continued. we're,
Yeah.
we're trying to, I mean, one, we recognize that when I talked to my husband about some of this stuff, and he's like, yeah, that's obvious. I'm like, okay, fine. You've been with me for 30 some years, right? So I guess it's obvious because I'm so great. But two,
You
a
are.
lot of what we're saying is in fact obvious, but it's
Yeah.
not, it's the sort of elephant in the room feeling of obvious. It's not, once you see it, you can't not see it. But until you've seen it, the elephant's invisible. And somehow
Well, I think
it's affecting everybody, but no one's articulating it.
if we can get any man who's listened to this or heard of it even secondarily about what we've been talking about to just go into a party or a room or an event and just pay attention to the women,
Right.
right? And notice that the prettiest one there isn't necessarily leading the other ones, then you'll catch a glimpse of what we're talking about.
That, exactly. Go into a room of women and see which woman the other women are tracking. And it
Right.
doesn't, the prettiest one may not have the skill to be able to create that effect.
Right. I mean, and that is a stereotype of in literature, at least the pretty girl who doesn't know she's pretty because she's awkward, because she's socially awkward. A queen is not socially awkward.
Right.
A queen knows how to work a room to her and everyone else's advantage.
Right. Exactly. And the prettiest girl that the men are looking at may not command any of the other women at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That was our lesson for tonight. So we made it. Yes, excellent. We have no idea. No, we do know what we're doing next week, and we will parse out. We hope to keep I mean, we're still like the conversations that we're having, you know, in Telegram and Social Galactic and YouTube comments. Thank you all very much, because it helps us figure out
Yeah.
which pieces of this we need to disentangle from the great matrix that we ladies live in,
Yes, it is a matrix. Yeah.
which means womb. Thank you for watching. And
Ooh.
happy Valentine's Day. Good night.